5, homework 1. Let's get started. Symbols. When you're working with inequalities, you have to remember the symbols that are involved with the inequalities. Usually we read these symbols from left to right. So reading from left to right, this is greater than. Notice that I'm reading it from left to right. It's got 2 points on the left side versus 1 point on the right. Well, 2 is more than 1, so this side is greater than. X is greater than 3, includes all real numbers greater than 3, but not 3 itself. Just numbers greater than 3. Here we have greater than or equal to, and the example is X is greater than or equal to 5. This includes 5 and all numbers greater than 5. So there's the difference. This one does not include the number it's talking about. This one does include that number. Then we have less than, reading from left to right, again using the points that I try to show you because a lot of students are confused on how to read these. Well, here's 1 point and here's 2. So if we're reading from left to right again, this is less than. X is less than 6.2. Includes all numbers less than 6.2, but not 6.2 itself. We've got to get that in and keep that in mind. Now we have less than or equal to, and the example is X is less than or equal to 1/2, includes 1/2 and all numbers less than 1/2. Let's solve an inequality by addition. For the most part, solving an inequality, whether you're solving by addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, is just like solving an equation. We could take this inequality and we could compare it to solving the equation x minus 16 is equal to 12. And we know that we would solve this by adding 16 to each side, bringing the rest down, and we get x is equal to 28. Well, it's the same thing here, except it's not an equation, it's an inequality, meaning it's not equal to, but in this case this is a less than or equal to. So we use our same methods of solving inequalities the same we would do as solving equations. There are some exceptions, but not yet. I will tell you those as we get there. So we would add 16 to each side of the inequality symbol. These two cancel. Negative 16 plus x, 16 gives you 0, so bring everything else down. We have x is less than or equal to 28, and we're done. Now, in the future, we're also going to talk about graphing these, and I'll go ahead and graph this inequality itself. We're talking about the number 28, so I'll just put it right there on the number line. If you wanted to, you could say, well, here's 27, and here's 29. Not necessary, but we can do that. We're going to talk about this in a future slide, but I'll go ahead and show you as well. Remember, when graphing inequalities, you have either less than or greater than, and if you have those two symbols, then you graph with the circle that's open and unfilled. If we have less than or equal to and greater than or equal to, we have a circle that is actually filled in for our graph. Here we have less than or equal to, so we're talking about the number 28. So my circle goes above the number 28. I have the or equal to, as I showed you here. You have to have a filled in circle. X is less than, so my arrow for the graph goes this way. Now, if we're reading from left to right, if our inequality is written from left to right, starting with the variable, then our arrow for our graph will always go in the direction that our inequality symbol is pointed as well. Just a little trick there, but remember, you have to have that written from the variable left to right. Let's look at some more examples. Let's now solve using subtraction. And just as before, I'm going to use techniques for solving an equation here as well. So I subtract, let me change to my. So I subtract 12 from each side. 12 minus 12 is 0, it cancels. Bring the x down, bring my symbol down, greater than. 10 minus 12 is negative 2. My answer is x is greater than negative 2. And if I needed to graph that as well, I'm talking about the number negative 2. So negative 3, negative 4, so on. For the most part, you guys will probably be provided with your own number line to graph, so no need to make them. We have the number we're talking about is negative 2, so I'll place my circle above the negative 2. It is greater than, so there is no or equal to, therefore my circle is open. X is greater than negative 2, it goes to the right. Notice how it is written from left to right, starting with the variable. My arrow in my graph is pointed the same direction as my inequality symbol. Just some quick tricks there. So I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to talk more about graphing. The symbol for the graph, if it's greater than, it's a circle, and it's going to be a heavy line and an arrow to the right. See how it's facing to the right? It will go to the right. If it's greater than or equal to, it's a dot, or what I call a filled-in circle, and it's a heavy line and an arrow to the right, face to the right. A circle on the number line, if it's less than, it's going to be open, and it goes to the left because I'm facing to the left. My inequality symbol rather, and same here, less than or equal to, so it's a dot or a filled-in circle. Okay, so that's something we've already discussed. So again, symbols are words. So if we have a symbol, this is our less than, this is less than, or it can be said as fewer than. Less than or equal to. Here's some key words. Remember this. Is at most. Is no more than. Less than or equal to. Greater than. Is more than. Is at least. Remember, this is greater than or equal to. We could also say is at least. Is no less than or greater than or equal to. So kind of get used to those. This is a very important slide right here. Write these things down in your notes, because when you're working with word problems, sometimes, as a matter of fact, a lot of the times, it's not just going to say, hey, this is less than or this is greater than. It's going to say is no less than, and you have to be able to interpret that as greater than or equal to. Okay, so pay very close attention to these key words. Write them down. Take notes. So let's take a look at one of those word problems. After selling a dozen copies of the Enterprise, Angela had fewer than 75 copies left. Represent this as an inequality and find the solution for the number of copies Angela started with. So let's kind of analyze this a little bit. So after selling a dozen copies, so she sold 12 copies of the Enterprise, she had fewer than 75. So we want to know how many copies she started with. So we're going to let that be known. This copies that she started with, that's going to be X, okay? So X is what she started with. She sold 12, so we're taking away 12. And this amount is fewer or less than 75. So here's our inequality. We're partially done. Now we solve to find out how many she started with. We add 12 to each side. Cancel. X is, bring down your inequality symbol. 75 plus 12 is 87. She started with 87 books. And that's how that works. So you have to kind of read it, analyze these words, these important words from the previous slide. Now be very careful, okay? Pay very close attention to this slide. If your solution has the variable on the right, you must reverse the inequality symbol when you give the solution with the variable on the left. In other words, if you solve an inequality and your answer is x is greater than 15, you need to remember that it's the same as x is less than 15. The way I like to say it is this: always, no matter which way you're reading it from, start with the variable. Because no matter if I had it written this way first, if I start with the variable, if I have 15 is greater than x, but if I read it from the variable, x is less than, see the 1 point? X is less than 15. But I always like to tell you, rewrite it. X is less than 15. This way, see, when you graph, you know which way your symbol is going to face. We're talking about the number 15. We have an open circle. X is less than, goes to the left, matches the same direction, and I'm done. So that's all we have for this assignment. Good luck.